My name is Brandon, and I am originally from the US. And I made my way to Europe many moons ago when I did an audition for a dance company in New York that was for a project for 3 months in the Netherlands. I got the audition, came to the Netherlands for a project of 3 months, and I'm still here 20 years later. I did my MBA at Cambridge, which was a fantastic experience. And afterwards came back to the Netherlands and started working in global health. And now I'm director of an organization called the Amsterdam Dinner Foundation. And we raise money and we raise awareness to contribute to the AIDS and HIV response. And we have a huge annual gala that's called Het Amsterdam Dinner. And that is now next year in 2022 will be 30 years that this dinner has been happening and making the biggest difference and making some noise about how to make the world just a little bit better place. I did university as I was dancing. So went to university when I was 18, near Washington, D.C. At a small liberal arts school called Shepherd University. And there also did some dance and danced semi-professionally, let's say, in Washington, D.C. So I already had my BA, which is something not all dancers, especially in Europe, it's not the norm. A lot of people in America, they do either have, they have either a BA in dance itself. There's a lot of university programs, and then also do a double major in something else. So that's sort of normal in the US, but in Europe, it's very different. Most dancers in Europe go to conservatory and they learn dance, and that's kind of their focus. But then as your dance career evolves and we all get older. For me, it happened somewhere, looking at the number 30, I started to think, okay, what do I want after this? What makes me excited? That at some point your dance career is going to end. It may be, at 30, it may be 35, it may be 40, or even after, but at some point there's a transition in employment that you're going to need to make. So I started just investigating what was it that I wanted to do, what things was I interested in. I've always had a passion for sort of like current events and politics and that sort of way in which, let's say, the clogs of I want to say power, but just how things work, and how can you within that make a difference. And so one of the things I was interested in, I was okay, well, maybe law school is for me. So I went I went to a couple of law schools, sat in on some classes, and I realized that's not the path I wanted to take. So that became clear, and then I started to think, okay, what could I study that was better suited to me and where I was in my life, that could still sort of bring me into a sort of the nonprofit world, the social sector, where there's this sort of blending of being able to, let's say, of politics, of charity work, and of sort of business acumen, which are all things that I was interested in. I was interested in combining it. And so very quickly, I started doing some research and came to think, maybe doing an MBA would be the right choice, a right career path, or maybe right stepping stone to the career that I wanted. And then it was just, peeling those layer by layer. Okay, if I want to do an MBA, then what type of MBA, what type of school? I started visiting MBA these MBA fairs where many schools come together and you can meet lots of people at once. And I would really walk up to people and just say what my background is, that I have this great story, what I'm interested in, what my scores were, who I was, and just say, do you think I'm right for your program? And so, and quickly I had a short list of schools that that I wanted to apply to. And I have to say, looking through that, as soon as I saw the program at Cambridge, sort of mission around the program and how diverse it was, it sort of went to the top of the list. And so then I applied to a handful of schools, and when I got the acceptance letter from Cambridge, it didn't take long to think about it, that it was the right place for me. I think in lots of ways, the whole process from meeting people at Cambridge to doing the visit at the campus, getting accepted and attending, and even sort of postgraduate sort of support. I feel like Cambridge embraced my diverse background from the very start. I felt like it was something that wasn't looked at as a problem. It was something that was looked at as an opportunity to have another voice. There was never any sort of any feeling that I was given that they didn't believe in me because I didn't come from a finance background or something. So that was really great. But I also never got the feeling that they changed their standards, like I had to show up with the same tests that everyone else did. I had to go through the same interview process. I had to go, in the end, that also gave me a confidence, that I may have a different background, but I'm competitive. And so I think they handled it very well. There was a curiosity and an openness, and people wanting to know about me, but also to share their knowledge and background. And so it was very. And Cambridge uses this word, or used to, when I went, that it's about collaboration, and it really was. Looking back, I think it speaks volumes about how I was at the same time embraced for having this sort of different story, professional story, but then at the same time expected to step up and do the same work as everyone else. And so it was right in the beginning of the program, we're divided into small groups, and I think lots of MBA programs have things like this. And then we had to do a huge project. So there were 5 people in my group. None of us knew each other. We're all from different backgrounds and from different countries as well. So you have all of these sort of clashes of culture and language and perspective that come with it, and that's the whole learning, right? Well, one of the very first days, I think the first day, our group, stepped up to the whiteboard, start brainstorming about our project. And, the pen was just thrown in my hand, and they're like, yeah, go for it. And I was like, yeah, but I don't have a business background. And they're like, so? They expected me to do and lead just as much as everyone else. And there wasn't, in that moment, there wasn't a lot of slack given for the fact that I didn't come from a business background. And looking back, that's how it should be. So, so like I say, people embraced it. They were curious about it. Anytime I had a question, like, the first time I took corporate finance, there was a couple of really nice people who sat down, and it took a couple of hours of their evening to try to, help me with the knowledge that they'd been doing corporate finance for 10 years or 5 years maybe. And, it was my first time. So it was really great to have their support and have their insights and knowledge. But they could only, that could only get me so far, and I had to show up and do the exams. And that was sort of the attitude. we're talking about different backgrounds and what that brings to the experience, and also what that brings to share with people. And I really feel like, so I was expected to step up and do the business part as well, but I really felt like that people were also interested in what my perspective was, because it was different. So there were times where, having been a dancer, the sort of discipline of that I learned, and the way in which a dancer sort of approaches work, taking it very seriously, taking your contribution very seriously as part of a larger group, just to name a few. Those were things that I brought in to the program as well, and was able to discuss that, among my groups or among in the classes. And those contributions, if I talked about my background as a dancer in relation to something, people were really interested in it. I think in the work itself, it's, a dancer is someone who, is very, very determined. There are sort of characteristics of a dancer, it's not an easy life. It takes a lot of discipline and a lot of focus. It takes, some sacrifice. It's not. It's also competitive, So how to function in a healthy way in an environment that is both collaborative and competitive. And I think we're often in the business world in situations like that. We're thrust into a team where, in order to make it to the next level, we've got to work with these people, but then at the same time, you have to stand out, and that's as a dancer, that's what you do, So I think there are lots of things that I could bring into this situation, the respect for technique, as a dancer. You learn technique and you practice technique, and you do that as a way in which to structure your language, So the sort of, for me, the respect of learning how to do something the proper way, you can always choose to deviate from that, but learning the proper way, learning the resources is something that, made sense to me. Learning the technique made sense to me. So something like corporate finance, I was fascinated by, and I wanted to learn how to do it. And so then, so I think those are some of the ways in which, I think the characteristics or the things that you pick up as a dancer, then also served in a sort of business, and still do in a business environment. The careers team and were super in helping me, get all of my assets together, help with, coaching on those sort of things, doing some interview coaching. So that was all great. What I really liked is that, in a place like Cambridge, everyone stops by, from prime ministers to business leaders. So you're exposed to this wide range, and that's also true within the MBA. So there are loads of companies coming by and giving presentations, meeting people. And so I just got as curious as I could, also that time would allow and that my energy level would allow. But I tried to go to a wide range of these sort of things to try to test my own theories of where I wanted to go. I did take a little detour because right after the MBA, I did get a job in a corporate environment, which was a really fantastic job. It was someone who came to campus. I met them. They were a great group of people. It was a really interesting opportunity, an interesting time to join this company. And so I thought, I'm going to apply. And I went through this whole process that took months. And this company at that time would choose 2 MBA students from the whole of the UK to join the company. And I got invited to join at the end of the summer. So I did that for a year. And I have to say it was really, really interesting. And it was a really great job, but it wasn't for me. And it took me that year to really realize, like, okay, this is, it's one thing. It was a good lesson for me as well, Because it's one thing to follow what's interesting, but there are lots of things that are interesting. And so making the distinction between what is interesting and what is interesting and fulfills my sense of purpose was a sort of next level. And I think because I'd been dancing for so long, and that was just an understood, that I never really had to think about it. So I took a little detour and I got some corporate experience, which is interesting. But then I realized that I wanted to really do something that had more of a social impact to it. So then I got a job back in Amsterdam working in global health starting a development department, so fundraising department with the late HIV researcher Joep Lange and his group here in Amsterdam. The foundation, its main goal is to raise money to support HIV and AIDS projects around the world. It's been doing this work for 30 years now. And so as the let's say as the AIDS response has developed over the years, the organization has had to respond. And it started in 1992 when HIV was still a death sentence, around the world and in Amsterdam as well. And then it wasn't many years after that things changed and the medication started to come on the market, and in many places and many parts of the world that the healthcare system functions, people live to normal life expectancy. People live fully developed lives around purpose and sense of self and self-fulfillment. So a lot of those issues that were around in the beginning, we don't see them around us on a daily basis in Amsterdam. But there's still a huge problem in many parts of the world. There are still, more than 700,000 people a year who die from AIDS-related diseases. There are still, I think it's around 250 children who die every day. It's, unfathomable that this is still happening in our world. And, it goes back to a sense of that. I always say that AIDS is sort of a canary in the coal mine, that it really highlights inequality and discrimination and injustice. And that's the work that we do, and that's and we do that by celebrating life. We do that by coming together, and we do that by having events that really bring people together and try to raise awareness and have fun and raise money so that we can support these meaningful projects and the people, the amazing people who are running these projects on the ground all around the world. What is it that I bring? Is it more the sort of business education? Is it a dancer? And I think, the real answer to that is you bring yourself, right? So learning a skill, learning how to do corporate finance, or learning to do a pirouette, these are things that you just learn along the way. But in the end, you're bringing yourself, your whole self. And the more that you can be fully realized, and the more that you can be fully present and be fully yourself, then I think the better you're able to do your job.